Welcome to the show, guys. This is Retrogamer GenX, and this is the Retro Rewind. And we got Moby and Leland with us today with a special guest to RetroProjections. And this is basically a new show, a new concept. We're going to be kind of like an attack of the show, kind of a G4-ish type feel with a little Wayne's World type of mix into it, gameplay, some music, all that kind of craziness. So,
excellent.
Yeah, if you guys like it, let's go ahead and see what happens here. So, what do you guys think about like the Nintendo Switch and all that?
I'm Moby from the T-Hud Popcast. Leland is my longtime co-host and sometimes grumpy provocateur on that particular show. And I'm the nice guy, but I have a chip on my shoulder today. And as a Nintendo fanboy, I have a problem. Now, the problem is that I actually defend intellectual properties a lot. I think, and this is not popular amongst a lot of gamers, but I think that a company, has a right to sell their products and their software. But in the case of Nintendo, they're doing something that really annoys me, which is the Nintendo Switch has an online subscription service. And up here in Canada, where Leland and I are, that service for an individual costs $25 per year. And in exchange for that, amongst several other perks, you get access to Nintendo's online Nintendo Entertainment System library of games, Super Nintendo, and also the Game Boy. However, locked in an additional tier that they call the expansion pack are their 34 Nintendo 64 games and a smaller number of Sega Genesis games as well. But my problem is that tier, that expansion pack is, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but it's $64 Canadian, which if you do the math is 2.5 times the amount of the base price for the subscription service. And that's all to gain access to less than 40 N64 games. Granted, some are popular, Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time, Mario 64, Star Fox 64, but some are more obscure Japanese-only releases that I don't think anyone outside of really hardcore retro gamers would want to get into. And then there's just a bunch of below-average releases that nobody, I think, would really want to touch. And I just think that Nintendo went the wrong route with this. I think that, first of all, those games should have either been put under the standard tier. Alternatively, maybe you charge an extra $2.50, maybe $5 a month for it. But 2.5 times the base price, to me, is just ridiculous. And one thing that people of our show know is that my university program was marketing. So this really sticks in my mind. I'm thinking, with all the spiritual sequels to Zelda and Mario, which follow the whole 3D gaming route, why didn't Nintendo maybe just release a few of these popular ones for free even on their service? Because if you get new people into those games, they're going to look up Zelda Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, and they're going to drop $60 or $70 or $80 on those. To me, Nintendo's missing the boat here. It's not good for their customer. That's my monologue. What do you guys think?
Yeah, man. So y'all kind of know how I feel about the whole bringing up games into a store and selling them that are older than 20 years old. To me, that's like antiques, okay? Anything that's like over 20, 25 years old, they're antiques. I know copyright law is only, it's 75 years. But at the same time, people are trying to preserve these games. A lot of games through history have disappeared because of basically copyright. I mean, there's arcade games from the past, like, stand-up arcades, that are just gone now because the ROMs are missing. Nobody has them because nobody wanted to give up the rights to them. They were never preserved. And now, obviously like Mario and Zelda and stuff like that, I mean, those are going to be around forever. And then you get these big companies that make millions, billions of dollars every year, and they're going back to, because like people like my age are the retro gamers, and a lot of people don't have these systems like I have back behind me. So what's the next best thing? They go out and buy a Switch, and oh yeah, I can play these Nintendo games while they're socking them a charge for it. when they can go to their local video game store and just go buy, a Mario. I don't know how much they are nowadays. I mean, a Mario probably goes for what, 20, $25 nowadays at a store. I don't know.
Yeah. Like Mario 64 and an N64 cartridge, loose about that.
But at this, it's just about having that physical copy. Because let's say, so when the Switch goes away and that store goes away, are you still going to retain that copy of that Mario? And are you going to retaining on the next system? You know what I mean? And it's just that whole thing. So then you'll end up buying it again for that next system, and then they make that money. And the shittiest part about it is like the people that program the game, like Joe Schmo programmer that program Mario how to jump, is not making any profit off of that. 40 years later, it's Nintendo, big corporate Nintendo is making that money. So I don't know.
Yeah, okay. If you think of it as far as preservation, like this is Nintendo, obviously with the smaller collection of games that they offer with the subscription level based on the service, like they're choosing what is preserved, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously they're going to choose the titles that they know will be the selling points. So, like you say, like for people of your generation, retro, and who have had experience with the older titles, probably less popular titles too, right? Nostalgia also always plays into these factors too, right? It's like unfortunately, it doesn't matter to Nintendo about those older titles because those are not the titles that they're currently going to make money off of. So they don't give a shit, and no major corporation would give a shit in a similar situation. But also like the pricing for this type of offering is still significantly less than what you would find with like a PlayStation Plus membership, which again, speaking Canadian dollars, you can get like an annual subscription for like $100 at their lowest tier, upwards up to almost 200 for their their highest tier of the three or whatever it is. And they too offer, free download, free games, free monthly games, etc. that rotate. And I assume, Sony again chooses the ones that they think will be a drive to get people to subscribe to the subscriptions model, right? Like subscription models have proved to be successful for decades, right? Obviously, since Netflix implemented their subscription model and have grown into this huge conglomerate because of it, like the model is proven, and it makes a lot of sense that these other corporations are going to hop onto it. But it's selective preserving, right? They get to choose they're choosing their best foot to put forward to try to grow this audience on this new service that they're offering. So it doesn't surprise me. And I don't you're not going to change it though, is the thing. Like, how are you going to change it?
Nope. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. It would be difficult. I think one obscure way it could potentially be changed is there's actually a lot of pirated physical copies of some old school video games out there. They're remaking in Asia cartridges for Nintendo 64, Super Nintendo. You go on and on. Now, if enough people went in that direction and abandoned the subscription service, maybe that might make Nintendo take a look at it. But I think that, I know you're shaking your head, and I agree with you mostly, Leland. Like, I just think it's unlikely that it would ever get to that point. I do agree with RGX.
It's even more unlikely than unlikely. There isn't a descriptor between zero chance and unlikely. It's so much closer to zero chance that anything like that would ever happen. The entire debate, this is a whole nother conversation into the worth and the value of physical media. That again, for the last 20 years has been a conversation that has been happening simply, even as something as simple as collecting DVDs or Blu-rays, physical media. It's dying. I mean, look at movie rental, Blockbuster's dead. That's a whole nother conversation that is also a part of it. But also when you're looking at I do not recall the last time that I bought a physical video game. It's just so much more convenient. And I used to be a huge advocate for physical media. And I would love to have the stacks and the shelves of my video games, my books, everything. And that's just changed because it's just so much more convenient for me to download a new PS5 title the day it comes out. I don't got to leave my fucking couch. I don't got to get off my ass. I just hit a few buttons. Boom, it's mine once it's downloaded. And that is just so much more convenient than having to go out to a GameStop and contend with people in general, which I'm not much of a fan of. That's just another part of the conversation, I think. So I think that's also plays into why a model like this is so beneficial for the consumer in general.
But Leland, I think you're not seeing the forest through the trees here a little bit, because there is some evidence that there is a backlash now towards consumers buying more physical media, particularly Blu-rays, definitely vinyl. Like, Gen Zers and stuff are going way back to vinyl recordings, because as RGX alluded to a few minutes ago, people want physical media because they own it. They can stick that disc in their drive at 2 a.m. 10 years from now, and assuming they have hardware that's still functional, they can play their game. The problem with a model like Nintendo has right now is what just happened with the Wii U, that just got all support shut down and the servers shut off. People spent a lot of money on those games, and unless they're on your Wii U hard drive and are never deleted, if you delete them, they're gone. And the problem is, I see it as like leasing a car versus owning a car. Right? Leasing has certain small advantages, such as, if the car utterly breaks down, they'll fix it for you and you don't have to pay for that. But at the end of the time, you either got to buy that car out or it just goes back to the dealership. I think a lot of people don't want, companies like Nintendo to say, okay, you're going to have access to this game for 5 years, but we're going to pull the rug from underneath you whenever we feel like it. So, I mean, I disagree with you, Leland. I can't really remember the last time I bought a digital game for my Switch. I only buy the chips.
Right. Yeah. And look, I don't mean to make the argument of digital versus physical and digital being superior. That's certainly not what I'm advocating for. And I definitely understand all of those points about physical media that you bring up. I just say that's my personal habits now have shifted. And again, it's simply shifted for convenience, and but I do understand the importance of physical media, and I completely understand wanting to physically feel like you actually do own it, to have it in your physical hands, and how important that is for the consumer. Like, I completely understand and validate that. I will say, however, though, anybody that purchased a Wii U deserves everything they're currently getting, just for that record. But but I get what you're saying. I just mean that.
You just like it's all my Wii U as a gift. Look, so you're in trouble here, not me.
Okay, the like I was saying, this is a different argument than what you started with your monologue. Now that we've branched into this physical media thing, but there's just no denying how successful the lack of physical media can still prove to be as far as profit wise. And again, just look at Steam in general. Like, it just makes hand over fist piles and piles of money that you don't physically own those games at all. If Valve decided to up and close shop for Steam, millions and millions of titles would just be completely screwed over, right? Millions of consumers would be completely screwed over. And I guess when you...
I'm on board now. You convinced me. I'm going to go digital.
Put your trust in Valve. You'll never be steered wrong.
When was the last time, though, that you ever thought to yourself, like, oh no, I hope I didn't lose my entire CD collection just right now because I happened to drop it on the ground while I was getting into my car? Like with an iPod, you can lose everything in an instant. But with a hard drive, you could have a brownout like we had on Saturday or on Friday night, and something could go wrong with your hard drive and wipe everything out. Everything that you had. You're never going to lose all of your games all at once unless there's some tragedy that takes a lot more than just your games away.
I certainly don't have any backups for any of my hard drives. I have my podcasting hard drive, if I've lost that, everything would be gone. That would be pretty devastating, actually.
It would.
But
Yeah.
one thing I'll say for the mitigation of risk when it comes to digital games, especially PC games, is that a lot of the save files are cloud-based nowadays. So that makes things easier with reinstalling and say you had a hard drive get fried. But I mean, I would say physical release, there's less chance of everything getting destroyed at once, right? Like it would take a house fire and have like your whole closet of games burn or something like that. Yeah, I guess to tie this all back, Leland, you're right. We kind of went off on a tangent here. It's really, I feel Nintendo is price gouging for access to just a few games. I think, 10% more added on that base cost would have been okay. But to do the increase that they have by 2.5 times, I just found is ridiculous.
Now we've come to the part of the show where we'd like you, the viewers, to participate. Send a selfie in or a short video clip of your attempted high score, and we'll feature your attempt on the show and add you to the Retrogamer Rewind leaderboard. Join us, our guest, and the rest of our viewers as we compete to get the #1 spot on the leaderboard. In this high score challenge, we will be playing River Raid on the Atari 2600. This game was released in 1982 by the newly formed company Activision and developed by former Atari programmer Carol Shaw, an amazing female video game programmer in a male-dominated industry at the time that really deserves her own documentary on this channel. But here's my pathetic attempt at a high score at River Raid to start off the leaderboard. Let's see what you guys got. Alright guys, so tonight we have our first guest, RetroProjections, a fellow YouTuber and a fellow retro game enthusiast and a good friend of mine. What's up, brother? What you doing?
How you doing, man? Good to see you. Good to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So first show, first guest. What a privilege, man, to have you on.
Privilege is all mine.
So I love the whole idea of your channel and what you do. So let me kind of explain to the folks what you do. So he has a projector and a wall, of course, that he projects basically retro games on and records them while he's talking and everything else. Just a totally different concept than anybody else I've seen on YouTube. I'm sure some other person does it, but I think just what he does is really, really cool, and I've just never seen it. So where did you get the idea of kind of doing this whole thing, man?
Yeah, well, it's not my idea, really. In 1994... my sister got a new apartment, and I was helping her paint, I think. And we went, walked to the local kind of strip mall that was basically through her backyard there, and got some drinks, some colas, and and I was like, hey, I'm gonna pop over to the arcade here and check it out. And right there at my local arcade, they had gotten rid of Galaxy Force 2 Deluxe, which was a huge rideable game.
Right.
And it was pneumatic valves, and it would pitch and back and forth, and really expensive, but always breaking down. So they got rid of that, and right there in the arcade was a projector running Samurai Showdown 2 for the Neo Geo. And from that moment on, I was like, I need a projector in my life. I have to make this happen. And it never did until my wife and I moved into this place we live in currently, and I had this really large wall down here in the basement. And I said, that is the perfect place for a projector, because this wall, it's painted, you can't quite tell, but it's painted matte white, okay, which is like no gloss, right, no reflection at all. So the image is just, it's spectacular. And so I was like, I'm getting a projector, and I did. Right here,
Oh, right
this
on.
little dynamo mini projector right here, and I don't know. A buddy of mine was like, "You gotta put this on YouTube." So that that's the long story short.
Hell yeah, man, it works. Yeah, yeah. I love your videos, man. I love the games you play. I'm not gonna break into that because later on in the questions we'll go over the favorite games and everything. But yeah, definitely some really cool games he plays. Now let's go ahead and I got a clip here from you. Now, kind of explain what this clip is. I know it's just the intro, but kind of explain where you're going with
Super
it.
Nintendo. It's my Super Nintendo intro, and it's just a few Super Nintendo games put together. What I want to eventually do is an intro for every console or whatever, and I want to have that so that somebody tuning in, they can get my maybe opening monologue and then right into the intro of what they're gonna expect in that video. So.
All right, let's go ahead and roll it. Now, I don't have to ask, but the audience would probably like to know, what is your favorite video game system and your favorite video game?
Oh man, favorite console of all time. It's more than just a console, right? It's almost like it's 5 consoles in one. It's the Sega Genesis. And why I can say it's 5 in 1 is because my Sega Genesis plays Sega Genesis US. It plays Japanese Mega Drive, right? It plays 32X. It plays Sega CD, and I've got a little adapter here to play Master System. So it's like 5 consoles in one. It's the beautiful thing about a backwards compatible structure like that is, coming up, having Sega, I always knew that they were going to have my back until they didn't. That is,
Right.
with Saturn.
Yes.
I got a question for you two. I hate to say, I'm not going to call you the older gentleman in the chat. We'll call you the slightly more experienced gentleman. But you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, the 90s was your decade of where you came of age, right? Teenagers to adults was the 90s. And we're talking Sega. Something I wonder, as a kid that was too young during that time a little bit, did Sega, for you to really come off as like a cooler, more grown-up alternative to Nintendo? Or is all that, Sega does what Nintendo, is that crap? Or was that actually how you guys, felt when the Genesis came out and all that marketing?
Well, for me personally, it was real. I mean, it was. Now, the Genesis does what Nintendo don't, though. That kind of started when the Super Nintendo had already kind of been leaked as a thing.
Okay.
Right? So in '89, when the Genesis came out, they were just like, hey, Sega has a new console. It's like an arcade at home. And that was kind of the way they did it. And it wasn't until like a couple years into the console when they started the whole like poking the bear with Nintendo. And so like I never had an issue myself. I don't know. There were no like allegiances for me personally. But once that marketing started, then I had to defend myself constantly from the Nintendo fans, just all the time. And I'm like, hey man, like I didn't do it. It's not me. Like I just like Streets of Rage. It's not me.
Right?
Fair enough.
Yeah, for me, man, it was kind of like, so I grew up with the 2600, and then from the 2600, I went on to the NES. And then, so I was like a full NES fanboy. In fact, my mom had bought a Sega Master System first for that Christmas, and she actually took it back to get the NES instead of me having the Master System, because I was whining about it. Because I knew, I was getting a video game system and everything. But yeah, so then when the Genesis came out, I remember just all the marketing behind it, and it was just kind of like that whole. It was more the grown-up console, it was more the adult console. While Nintendo was like little cartoon characters, you had Mortal Kombat over here with blood and people ripping people's heads off, that kind of stuff.
Good point.
So it was way better.
Even Sonic with his finger wave, I remember, I grew up in such a conservative family, and I remember my mom I think she walked into the room. I had one friend, his name was Aaron, that had a Sega Genesis, and she's like, wow, that little blue, what did she call him, hamster or something like that. It wasn't hedgehog. He's got an attitude with that little glare in his finger. And to me, that kind of summed up, Sega versus Nintendo, right?
Right.
Mario's like a nice little plumber. He'll fix your sink for free, come holidays and weekends. But, Sonic was just going to go, nope.
Yep.
It's almost like you can play me when you want to play me, or when I'll let you play my game. But
so now with this, you said that you had those different systems. What systems did you actually completely grow up with, like from the beginning? What was your very first system that you had?
The day I was brought home from the hospital was a 2600. I mean, we were an Atari house, and that's what I had, and we upgraded from the wood panel Atari 2600 like I have right here to a Vader system, and then my dad was a wheeler dealer, and he was always getting lots of Ataris and another console and more games, and at one point we had over 500 games.
Wow.
And I a dozen, maybe more consoles, and we had them all. We had the Sears, and we had the Sixers, and we had the Fours, and all of the different brands, and with wood paneling and without, and so Atari was the thing until we moved on from Atari.
Mm.
So, and then it was my choice, and every kid I knew had a Nintendo except for one kid, and he had a Sega, and he had every 2-player co-op game, which it's not like there were that many, maybe a dozen, but he had them all. And so my perception was everything on Sega you could play with your friend. You don't have to wait for your friend to be done. You can play with them.
Right.
Because I had friends that were they had been playing Mario for years, and you want to play Mario? Okay. We'd sit down. They'd spend an hour. They'd beat the game, and they go, I'm bored. And it's okay, your turn, Luigi. I'm bored.
Right.
And it's well, now I don't get to play because I just watch you. Or they'd go straight through Mike Tyson. And lose to Mike Tyson again. And it's well, here you go. You can play now. And so Nintendo was a major turnoff for me.
Right.
Yeah, first co-op console game I ever played, maybe first co-op game, was Golden Axe on my friend's Genesis. So, and it was just so cool. You've got one guy who's a dwarf, so he has slightly different skills, and I was just, the generic warrior. And, I mean, for newer watchers of the show, you have to understand what it was that far back. To have co-op at the same time as RetroProjections is saying was an amazing thing. Because Mario, right, you're saying you would watch your friend beat the game and say I'm bored. That's because Mario was alternative turns. Your friend, if he was good, could just, beat 5 worlds.
Yep, one life clear.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So. And it would happen a lot more than I care to remember. I mean, it was like everybody's house. I'd go over there and just watch them just fly through Mario, and I'm like, all right, maybe, what, have you never played before? Well, no, I haven't ever played before because you're the one playing them.
Yeah, I mean, you were just pioneering Let's Plays. You're just watching. You're just the first OG viewer of Let's Plays, apparently going over to all your friends' houses.
Right.
Yeah, it's why all of us older YouTubers do so much Let's Play. That's what we're used to. Like, that's how we'd hang out, right? RGX. We'd go over to your buddy's house and like bring some beers and just hang out and watch them play Madden.
Yep.
And you hop on every once in a while until you can afford your own PS2 controller. You're watching them.
Exactly, man. Yeah, those are the good times, man.
I wish my PS5 had wood paneling. That's all I can say about current generation console. I want a wood paneled PS5. I don't know about anybody else, but
right.
Atari, the wood paneling looks pretty sexy back there.
It fit in with the furniture of the time, I can tell you that.
Exactly, man, exactly. So let's go ahead and play a game here, man. So what I'm going to do, since we're kind of talking about consoles from the past and all that kind of stuff, let's go ahead and discuss your favorite video game console from every generation, from first to, let's say, 7th, which is what I would consider retro these days.
The first generation was probably Odyssey. That's the one that seemed like everybody had, was the Odyssey.
Right.
As a Pong. It's just Pong. Some of them had a saran wrap thing you'd put on the screen so it looked like something different, but all it was Pong. So that's generation 1.
All right.
And 2 was 2600, of course.
Right.
I did have friends who had some of the others. ColecoVision. I remember a buddy had a ColecoVision with a ton of really cool. That was really an underrated console. Really excellent. Maybe not the best controller, but I mean Atari 2600 didn't have the best controller either. So. Yeah, you got it. And third, God, you're going to hate me. No. I mean, third is the Master System. But you're going to hate me because I consider the TurboGrafx 16, the PC Engine, a third generation console.
Right.
The Master System in Japan and the PC Engine in Japan, they came out within a week of each other.
Yep.
Right? How is that a different generation if they came out on the same Saturday? You go to the mall and they have it. They have them both.
Right. So,
that one's close second for the third generation there. Because it's just so good. I mean, we didn't get anything of what that little thing was capable of. It's so many hundreds of really great games that they had in Japan that we didn't have here.
Yeah, you know what? RetroProjections, that's the one console before the 5th generation that I owned was TurboGrafx 16. I have so many fond memories. That console, I get it that I think the graphics processing unit was only 8-bit in that, but it had 16-bit colors, something similar to that. But for what they did with it, it popped. Those side-scrolling shooters, those are the best side-scrolling shooters I've played to this day. Ones like Soldier Blade, Raiden, even Dark Moon. There's just so many of them. And so, I totally agree with you on that.
It's a very, very close, and really it's only number 2 because of the familiarity. I just, I would buy every TurboGrafx 16 game I could afford, but they were never on sale. And so dropping $60 for a TurboGrafx 16 game was well, I would rather go buy 3 Master System games.
Yeah.
And that's oftentimes what I did. So, 4th generation, it's Sega, Genesis, all the way. And then, we were talking, RGX, we were talking not long ago, I think one of your chats in a video, about how it's like almost like there's a 4.5 generation, right? For like those 32-bit consoles that didn't really pan out. They didn't have enough like time to like bake.
Yeah.
Like they were half baked.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the 32X and the Jaguar and the 3DO and like they had like potential, right?
Oh yeah.
And they just didn't it didn't work.
They didn't take off, man. It was all in the marketing and what was going on and how they developed them. I mean, like the Pippin and the 3DO, both of them, they had other people manufacture the systems for them. And manufacturing the systems is always the thing that makes you lose money. It's from the sales and the licensing is where you get your money from. So,
yes.
I mean, just things like that. And then just that difference between the, going from sprite graphics to polygon graphics, going to 30-bit, 32-bit from 16-bit, all that, the whole transition from the cartridge to the CD format, I mean, it was just kind of weird. So even though most of them are considered 5th gen, you can't really consider them 5th gen. It's just the way they were,
And there's like such a big gray area there in like it's like 87 to like 2000. Yep. It's just a big mess. You saw the same thing with like cars, right? Like I remember like Honda was making cars 87 to like mid 90s that would just like wax a Camaro off the line. And it's like, how is that thing, that little like Civic, like so much faster than everything else? It's like you because the Camaro was old shit, man. It was old tech in a new pretty wrapper.
Is that just because there was just so much more competition? I mean, when you think of a console war, now obviously you have the big 3 players in the console wars these days, right? But what was it that there's just far more, produced far more different types of consoles made by different companies back then, or is that what it was? There was just like way more competition in general.
Yeah,
well, I think you might have hit it. Yeah.
Okay, so you had your 1st gen, and people started really trying to get into games. 2nd gen, by the time 2nd gen came out, there were so many different 2nd gen. Like Moby, we've talked about that too. Like the Emerson Arcadia 2001. You've never heard of that system. No. That's because it's just one of those weird 2nd generation systems that nobody's heard about. Well, unless
they sold like 16,000 of them.
Right.
Yeah.
So many people were in it, and that led to the video game crash. And so then you come to the 1990s where technology is just, booming. And so we're going to CD format. We're going to 16 to 32-bit to sometime even 64-bit by the end of the 1990s, And it was that weird period in time where everybody's just like, oh, we got to jump in and see what's going on. And a lot of companies went belly up because of it or, just disappeared. So.
Yeah, there was a lot of boldness as far as new ideas and how to waste your money back then. That's I think why video games were so different is people, Sega and Nintendo, you guys talking about like the mistakes Nintendo's making, they're the same mistakes Nintendo's always been making. They've always been screwing it up like that, and they've been screwing with their customer base, and somehow people are loyal to them. Like Sega was always like shooting off their own foot, and like oh, right. I can't believe we did it again. And it's like, what the hell is wrong with you guys? But you see it not just in gaming technology, but you see it in like movies produced in the 80s and early 90s, like some of them are just terrible. Like most of them are terrible. But then, like, Back to the Future is a master class of storytelling, and nobody wanted it. Like, people were throwing that script out, right? They didn't want to do that movie until like somebody finally said, "I'll take a chance on this," and it's like one of the best movies ever.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, and so it was just a different era. It's probably cocaine's fault. I don't know. Like, that was a huge deal in the 80s. Like glove boxes, you would open the glove box of a car and there's a mirror on the lid, and it's like you can't like take the mirror off.
Right.
Like how? Like I'm not. Like,
what is that
mirror
for?
I just watched 1983 Scarface with Al Pacino like a couple weeks ago. I'm just imagining him with all the cocaine at the end, and it's like mounted on the wood grain Atari. That's what I'm imagining. It would fit in so perfect, you know. You've got the nice faux wood and some white powder. There you go. That's how America was built.
His little friend is the Atari. That was the whole thing.
Yeah.
Nobody understands that movie.
Oh, to my little
is
friend.
the Atari 2600.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then you know, so Sega like lost me, right? They lost me in '94 with the whole debacle with the 32X and the Saturn. You know, they were released one day apart, right, in Japan. The 32X came out, and then the next day the Saturn came out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, like, it took a year for it to get here in the States, but I was done with Sega.
Yep.
And I went PlayStation, and that was like so many decisions that I made were due to just cost efficiency, right? And PlayStation had the greatest hits games for $20. They were always $20. They were always $19.99. And so I would get a game that was a greatest hits on the PlayStation, and my friend, his like not same version for the N64 was $75. And I'm going like, yeah, I wouldn't buy Warzone for $75 either, man. That game sucks. But I would pay $20 for it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Exactly, dude.
You know, and yeah, and so then I was Sony all the way up to PS3, and then I remember
the lost generation for Sony.
Oh, that was a PS3. Oh goodness.
I remember putting in a game. I don't even remember the game right now. I think it was one of the last NCAA football games, possibly. And I had to download a patch before I could play it. And this was day one.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 14 hours.
Whoa.
Yeah, that sounds like the PS3.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, because they had a built-in like throttle in what they would allow you to upload in the console, right?
Right, and I live in like one of those towns in America where our infrastructure for our internet was built in 1960. And I'm not joking. It actually was built in 1960, and they haven't done anything to it since.
Oh crap, man!
Yeah, you get your internet by mail, basically.
Welcome to my town too, dude.
And so yeah, it took a long time, and then I was just like, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. So I haven't. The last new game I played was in 2011.
Yep, I believe it. Yep, I don't have anything past PS3 and Xbox 360 either, man. I just don't.
Yeah.
I kind of got out of console gaming, got into PC gaming, so that's just kind of the way it goes. Now, obviously, I have all these I play all the time, but as far as modern stuff, no. But
and that time too, 2011, 2010, like Red Ring of Death was like a serious thing.
Oh yeah,
like all the 360s were going. They were dying like flies in a insecticide factory.
Yeah, but
It was
you
just-
wrap your 360 in the towel, put it in the freezer, it'll work like a charm for an hour, and then it gets hot again, right? It was nuts. It was nuts. I don't know how either of those two generations got off with any bit of positivity from the consumer.
Right.
About them,
My first PS3 caught on fire.
I wouldn't doubt it,
Whoa.
dude. You should hear mine. It sounds like it's
Like
louder
2 days,
than my AC
2
unit.
days after I got it, it caught on fire, and I took it back to Best Buy, and I gave it to the guy, and he goes, "We got another smoker." It was like, what?
Oh no! This is
Yeah,
worse
I
than
just take
ever
that.
thought.
Just go get
Put
one.
it in the file.
Yeah.
That's too
Man.
funny. Yeah, I believe it,
What a
dude.
horrible-
They run hot.
oh.
They really do. And the reason for that's what Sony did is so you have the chips that are actually put onto the motherboard, okay? And then they have the real shitty paste that they put on, and then they put a lid on top, okay? And then on top
Yep.
of the lid is more thermal paste, shitty thermal paste.
Yeah.
And then is the
Yep.
heat sink. So what happens
Yeah.
is the thermal paste between that lid and the heat sink goes away, and then
Well, they decided to save a buck on it, and they got
Yep.
the cheap shit, and it sucks.
Yep, pretty much. Now they fixed it. Well, I can't say they really fixed it, but they made it better in the slim models. But the fat ones, oh, geez, like literally when I turn mine on, it sounds like an airplane. Just take it off.
Yeah, I have a slim now,
Yep,
super slim, right?
yep.
So, and it works. I mean, well, all I do is watch Blu-rays with it. So,
Right.
That's all it's good for. It's what it sounds like. I mean, I never owned one, but
Netflix.
right, yeah.
Well, I strictly had a PS3 for the exclusives. So I had a 360 was my main console. But before that, I was all PS2. It was always Sony. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure why I was able to have both of them. So I had both of them. And then PS3 just didn't have the games library. Ridiculous price for it. I mean, that alone is just the biggest hurdle at launch. Like, it was ridiculously priced. Absolutely ridiculously priced.
And they still lost tons of money selling them.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and you know this, RGX. I've had like everything, right? And I like from the Master System on, like maybe I liked my Sega more, but I've had like all of it, and from the beginning, you know, I had all of it. I just was one of those kids. I had to have them all.
Yep.
So
I was the same
and I had a
way.
paper route, so I was spending my money.
Yep, paper route, dude. I used to go cut grass. And
Yeah, I cut grass too, man.
Yeah.
That's how I earned my video
All the
game
grass,
money.
cut the snow, I do it all.
Right? Exactly. No, when it was snow time, man, I lived in Colorado. That shit was too cold for me. I was staying inside playing my
Not
game.
not enough money in the world. Yeah, there's not enough gaming consoles I want to buy to get me out there. In that weather.
I remember plenty of times somebody saying like, "Hey, I'll pay you $25 to shovel my driveway," and I'm like, I'm good.
Right?
No.
I'll take a
Call me
pass.
when it melts.
I
I'll
don't
cut
need
the
the
grass
money.
underneath it.
Just throw some ice melt on that shit.
The sun will come out in a week or two.
Right?
Here where we live, if you're smart enough to buy up all the salt as soon as it gets cold, then you can just resell it because they always run out. Even though we have 2 days of snow seats in here.
Not enough inventory for all of that.
Yeah. Well,
Right. Awesome, man. So I just wanted to thank you once again for coming on the show. And, where can people find you on these interwebs?
No, thank you for having me. I'm just on YouTube, RetroProjections. And, if they want to check it out, that's fine. But it's really, I'm not attempting to cater to anyone but myself. This truly is a passion project for me. And I think it's one of those, if you know, then you know. Right? If you know, then you know. But go ahead, check it out. It's fun. I play the old stuff on a projector, sometimes a CRT. And I try to just keep it as authentic and original as I possibly can.
Absolutely. Great to have you on the show, man. You have a great one.
Thanks, guys.
Retrogamer GenX. Here is my attempt on River Raid. It's not going to be good. I can't even keep my fingers on these buttons properly. And then if I do, guaranteed my, come on. This thing doesn't record most of my inputs. Come on. Yeah, see, I mean, come on. Okay, well, just don't go anywhere, I guess. Or shoot. That's fine. This is going to be the greatest score that anyone has ever seen. 660. This one's for the glory. Come on. I can't even keep my thumbs on the fake buttons. They're not real buttons. Yeah. Glitchy old cell phone. Oh boy. This is the worst control scheme. Oh. All right. Try it some more. Go. Why aren't you going? Come on. Oh, I can't keep my fingers on the... Oh, no. Well, RetroProjections. This is why I play on original hardware and original software. Take it easy. See you next time.
Great attempt, RetroProjections. I wouldn't have done any better with those touchscreen controls. RetroProjections had told me he didn't have a physical copy of River Raid to be able to play on his 2600. So, as a true gamer would, he broke out his old phone and played it. Because he gave it his best shot with really bad controls, and because he was a guest on the show, I'll give him a 10 times handicap. That will bring his total to 13,900 points and put him in second behind, that other retro guy. Don't forget, if you'd like to participate in the high score challenge, send in a selfie with your high score screen or a small video clip of your attempt to Retrogamer GenX at yahoo.com. And if you like the content so far, don't forget to hit that like and that subscribe button to help support the show and the channel.
That brings us to the end of tonight's show. Moby, Leland, and RGX are preoccupied with Megatron, so I'll send you off with a little something. And don't forget to mash those like and subscribe buttons. Peace out.
What's up, y'all? Retrogamer GenX here. I just feel I gotta say something about these old school games. I started out with Pong, and then Christmas Eve, 1979, we needed to get something a little bit different. Man, the memories, let me tell you. 1979, another design, but this time put an asteroid cartridge inside. Looked up the script like a microchip, the game ain't the same. Playing combat, space invaders, till the time came. Drawn deadly bliss, better not miss. CD avoiding pits, throwing fits, reminisce. Back in the day, Atari I played. Mama used to say, get off that damn thing, and of course I paid. Adventure Indiana Jones, couldn't wait to get home. Turn the power on, and the door was on. Many songs, space shuttle gone, come and get some. Get a high score, Atari gone for it. You want more, all you ask for. And never more, play till your hands sore. I'm leaning head for the door, won't get sliced.
Knees crazy like mice, kids games like Smurf. Very nice.